Hello, I'm Victoria Reade, founder of N.E.D, No Expiration Date. My co-host Susan Stephens and I are excited to welcome Francesc Miralles, who is joining us from Barcelona, Spain. Francesc is a leading authority on self-transformation and is an award-winning author who has written a number of books, including with Hector Garcia, the international bestseller Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life, which has been translated into 65 languages. Born in Barcelona, he studied journalism, English literature, and German, and has worked as an editor, a translator, a ghostwriter, and a musician. He's a passionate traveler and has been traveling the world since the age of 17 and enjoys connecting deeply with other cultures. Hola, Francesc. Bienvenido. Gracias por
Hola.
unirte a nosotras.
Pues muy feliz de estar con vosotras. Hello.
Hello. I wanted to start, Francesc, by having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I live in Barcelona right now. I travel every year to Japan. I think I've been there like 10 times, normally for different projects with National Geographic, as a journalist, as a writer. I've done a lot of my career in Japan, but nowadays I live in Barcelona. I work for newspapers, for national radio, and I give also many talks out of Spain.
And you wear so many hats. I'm really impressed with all of your different interests. Do you consider yourself first and foremost a writer?
No, first of all, writers are not really famous, none of them. Maybe Stephen King, but the rest of writers, normally when you go to the street, nobody knows how is your face. So maybe it's one a year or twice a year that somebody recognizes you and say, oh, you're Francesc Miralles, the author of Ikigai. Normally, people know the titles, people know the books, and they don't know the person. So our life is quite discreet.
Do you like that? You like having your privacy?
Yes, I like it because I consider myself a humble person, a modest person, and I like running a total normal life with my friends, doing the things that I did when I was 18.
Do you still feel like you are 18?
In many aspects, yes. I go on doing the same things. So my favorite hobbies are going to small concerts of indie music, going to the cinema, talking with friends, traveling, playing music. So I would say that in many aspects of my life, I am the same now than 30 years before.
Because you're a musician as well, right?
Yes, but music is for me like something inspirational. I've never done money out of that. So it's an excuse to meet friends and do different things and organize parties and underground concerts and things like that. And my professional life is writing and also going to universities, schools, to different associations, places, book clubs to talk about. Before I used to talk about many things. Nowadays, 99% of people want me to speak about Ikigai.
Yeah. Well, Susan and I share your passion for music, right, Susan?
Yes, absolutely. Music's been a part of my life since as long as I can remember, so I can definitely relate.
You have been a traveler since the age of 17, also a shared passion for Susan and I. How has the exposure to the other cultures, do you think, enriched your life?
Yes, actually, I never felt that I belonged to any place. So I lived in Barcelona, but I was dreaming, in the beginning, I was dreaming of the north of Europe, living near the North Pole. And actually with 18, 19, when I started working, I was a waiter, I worked in a camping, I worked in many different things as a courier with a motorbike. And the only purpose that I had in my life was traveling. So I was always earning some money to buy a train ticket and going there and knowing people. So I would say until I was 27, my only Ikigai, my only purpose in life was traveling. I had no other vision of what could be my future.
And then you lived in Slovenia and Croatia as well during the Balkan Wars.
Yes, it was because I didn't want to go to the army. By that time, being a soldier 1 year was compulsory in Spain. Now it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh.
And in my year, there were 1 million boys who rejected going to the army, and the government placed them in different places to do some social service. And I was sent to the Balkans during the war to work in a refugee camp with children, which was a very nice and very intense experience. And I think it changed also my vision of life, and it helped me to understand much better what means to be suffering and what many things about our history and about personal issues.
Yes, because you were there, as you said, during the Balkan War, and you
Yes.
wrote about it, didn't you, in your book, the Balkan Cafe?
Yes, I had two different destinations. The first one was very near the battlefront. And actually I was seeing all the time soldiers coming here and there, families. And so I discovered that war was very different of what imagined, very different from movies. So what I discovered was that people in places in war, I don't know how it is now in Kiev, in Ukraine, try to live as normal as possible. And even living in an island that was very, very near the battlefront, the bars were full, people were playing guitars and trying to celebrate friendship, and they were trying to run their lives as normal as possible.
Wow, very interesting. It really shows you about how people under very challenging conditions have that will to live and survive and continue to thrive.
People are very resilient.
Yes.
And something interesting that I experienced afterwards, that many years after the war, I was in these same places, and people who I knew, they said they had like nostalgia, melancholy of war times, not because of war, but because of the humanity that they found in their neighbors. People were helping each other much more than in normal times, and they missed this fraternity that they could live during the war.
Wow, that's very profound, isn't it, Susan?
Yeah. Do you think that people tend to be a little bit more, you spoke about people being resilient. Do you think it's because of the hardship that people face, that people are much more apt to be brought together and help each other in times of, difficulty and strife, rather than, just having a happy life in general?
Yes, it's with differences. It's something like what happened in the worst moments of COVID. You are aware of fragility of human life. You know that maybe your friend, your brother dies in the war, or dies during COVID times, and then, I don't know if I am going to live 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, but the time I have here to be in this world, I want to be as authentic and loving as possible. So I think in these special situations, people become deeper and more human, at least to your family, to your friends, to your companions. And this is this, I would say, feeling of here and now, that maybe we are celebrating this afternoon something together and drinking wine, and maybe tomorrow we cannot do it anymore. So they can live more, they can take advantage and seize the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, Francesc, in my case, our family lost my brother last year from COVID. So I really felt the impact of what you're saying. It has really changed my view of the world profoundly. And one of the reasons why I founded NED. because I think you need to make a difference and have a purpose in life.
Yes, I think that the pandemic has aroused a lot of purpose in people, and what happened in United States, called in psychology the Great Resignation, I think this is very interesting, that after being stuck the whole humanity at home, we had time to think, we had time to rethink our life, and many people decided that it was better to be poor and to risk your stability and maybe find something that you can feel that you are living an authentic life.
Yes, I agree. So now switching gears to your best-selling book, Ikigai, translated into 60 languages, which is
65 right now.
Oh, sorry. I read 60, so I will correct my intro. So how did the idea of Ikigai come about and your collaboration with Hector?
I got to know Hector like 10 years ago during one trip to Kyoto. I was writing a novel that was called Wabi Sabi, a love novel. And then I was introduced to Hector through a common friend, and we started traveling together. Every year we went to some different destinations. He was already living in Tokyo. He's been living there for 20 years. And one of these years that we were together, he said that his father-in-law, who is from Okinawa, had discovered a tiny village north of the island called Ogimi that was mentioned in the Guinness World Record book as the village with most longevity in the world. So the place in the world with more centenarians every 1,000 inhabitants. And we decided to go there as a personal interest, to interview the centenarians, to ask them for what they ate, how they related each other, exercise. We wanted to know how was their lifestyle, to understand how could they live until up to 100, 105, 108. And they were doing that in a very happy way. So it's not a matter of quantity, but also of quality. They are living 100 and longer, but with a lot of autonomy and a lot of personal energy. And we were very interested in that. And so we traveled there, and we had help from the town hall, the little town hall of Ogimi, and we could interview the 100 eldest people in town. So that was the beginning of our field study as anthropologists. And then we started writing Ikigai, because this was a word that was used by many of these old men and women, that they had an Ikigai, they had a purpose in life, and this helped them to start the day with energy, with hope, with illusion.
That's great. Did you see any differences with these people between men and women?
Actually, also there, women live longer. But there was not a main difference, because all of them are very active. So the main difference I saw between this old population and the population in Madrid, in Barcelona, in New York, is that in our culture, in the urban culture, it's not a matter of East and West, it's a matter of living in the city or living in a more natural environment. What I saw was that in the cities, all people are retired with no activity, with a lot of loneliness. Yeah. They don't have the support of other friends, they don't have common projects. And that in Ogimi, the way of life was very, the one of a community. They help each other. They have even circles of support called moais, in which they meet twice, 3 times a week. They talk each other. They celebrate birthdays also, practicing sports, singing karaokes, but also they help each other financially. There is a common box of money, and if any of the members of the community has a problem, they take the common money and they help this person. So when you are part of a community like this, of a Moai, you have two advantages that make you want to live longer. One, that you feel that you are not alone, that you have the solidarity of the group. If you feel sad, if you are ill, if you have some economical problem, the circle, the community is going to help you. But also, you have more self-esteem because you are responsible for the happiness of the others. So also you have an active role in helping the other people. And so it gives a sense of meaning that your life counts and that you are responsible of each other's happiness. And I think it's very interesting. And as I know, nowadays there are Moais in California and in many places of the world, especially people who get retired. They are afraid of ending their lives maybe in a medical center where
Yes.
you are a toy, you live, you abandon any sense of freedom, and they build communities so that they can help each other. They can hire doctors and what they need, but they have this tribe, this clan for emotional support. And I think this is very important.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me about your book, one of the underlying themes, along with a sense of community, is really learning to live in the moment and not worrying so much about what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future, to live every moment as fully as you can in the present. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, this is very important because before starting our field study in Okinawa, we were reading a lot papers about mental health in Okinawa, about history. And for us, it was surprising that the blue zone #1 in the world, that is Okinawa, so the place where they live more and better, was Okinawa, because Okinawa suffered the Second World War much more than the rest of the country. They didn't have nuclear bombs, but they lost 100,000 people. There were a lot of suicides. There is a huge military base there. And Okinawa is the poorest place in all Japan. So salaries there are half from the salaries in Tokyo. There are very little jobs. They have no infrastructures. And we thought, how is it possible that these people are the most happy in the country and the most happy in the world? And we discovered that there is a culture of forgiveness in Okinawa. So their philosophy of life is not looking back of what happened during the war, in the last decades, but centering in here and now in what we can do with our friends, with our people. And actually, if you travel to Okinawa nowadays, you will discover that apart from the army, the American army, there are like some thousands of Americans who live there. They married there, they speak the language, and they are treated exactly as the people who live from many generations. And one American filmmaker that I knew there, he said that this philosophy of forgiveness comes from a very nice key for them. There is a proverb for the Okinawa culture that says, once we have shared the same table, we are all brothers and sisters. And this feeling of brotherhood, I think, is key in this happiness issue that they have. So they don't think in history, they don't think of the past, they don't think in what happened, but they try to do from every day the best possible. And because of that, for instance, nobody is going to have lunch alone or have dinner. You are inviting your neighbors, and they try to do everything in group as much as possible, because they know that life, it has more joy when we can share it with other people.
And Francesc, one of the concerns I think in the US is that there is an age divide. In Okinawa, do the multi-generations socialize, or are the centenarians just amongst themselves?
Yes, there is a situation, and this is that in Ogimi, there are no jobs. In Ogimi, it's a rural place. They have fruit trees, citric fruits, like shikwasa, mandarin, orange, lemon, and everybody has a garden, and they are cultivating all of them. But for a person who is 30 or 25, there is not a job there. So what happens, that it's very curious, that there are a lot of old people from 80 to 110 and children. And these children are there with the grandparents, because when these children get older, they go to high schools and universities far away from there. But the children stay with the grandparents and they are raised there. And when they retire, they come back to this little paradise north of Okinawa. So it's a society composed by old people and very young people, but the people in the middle are somewhere else.
That's really interesting. So you have a
That's interesting.
multi-generational society. Wow. So tell us the concept of Ikigai. What is Ikigai?
Yes, we can start defining the two terms of the word. Iki means life, and gai means worth doing something. So Ikigai is a life worth being lived. So a life with purpose, with meaning. And so when we ask somebody, what is your Ikigai? What we are asking is, what gives meaning to your life? What is your vital purpose? What is your mission? Or more in a more informal way, we could say, what is the reason you get up every day from bed?
There are similarities to a concept that was, of course, developed by one of my heroes, Viktor Frankl, with logotherapy, which is also based on the premise that a person's motivation is to find meaning in life. So what is the similarity and differences between Ikigai and logotherapy?
Yes. We included a whole chapter about Viktor Frankl and another about Shoma Morita, that is the Japanese Viktor Frankl, from the same time, more or less, 2-3 years before, actually. He wrote about that also. It was a purpose therapy too. The difference is that Viktor Frankl centered in the meaning of life in general, but he also tried to work with his patients so that they could find at least one thing in their life. Maybe you don't have a big Ikigai for your life. You don't know what is your mission in life, but you know something that you love very much. Maybe your life is a disaster right now for personal reasons, but you are getting fond on mindfulness, on meditation, and there is 1 hour a day in which you are very happy. So Viktor Frankl would say, take this hour as something very important in your life, put it every day in your agenda, and try to think of that every time that you feel hopeless. So actually, everything what Viktor Frankl did with logotherapy was focused from present to the future. And it was like a kind of reaction to psychoanalysis, that is exploring the past to understand the present. For Viktor Frankl is find something to live for, something that you can do tomorrow, and the future will go on naturally.
And Ikigai?
And Ikigai, actually, people tend to relate it more to a profession, to passion. When I ask somebody, what is your Ikigai? If this person is a professional musician and is very happy about that, this person would say, my Ikigai is playing piano and discovering new songs and composing music, and this is what brings joy to my life. So I think especially for Westerners, Ikigai has a lot to do in a passionate job that you can find and something that is vocational. So for instance, many therapists, they have the helping others to overpass suffering as an Ikigai. and a good teacher will have education as an Ikigai. So I think the difference with Viktor Frankl was that he was more focused in existential issues, and Ikigai is more related with profession and passion.
I was really interested in the keys to longevity that you and Hector discovered in interviewing the centenarians in Okinawa. So tell Susan and I about the 80% secret, or Hara Hachibu.
Yes, this is interesting. Actually, this is not exclusive of Okinawa. This is common in all Japan. The law of 80%, they say Hara Hachibu, you must feel your body until here, not until here. It's a way of eating that says that it's good that you don't feel your stomach the whole hunger you have. So if you have 5 dishes on the table and you would eat the 5, then you eat only 4 and you keep a bit of hunger for the next meal. And so this kind of this rule, according to the medical studies, can give life. Let me think how to say that. Can make life from 6 to 8 years longer in the middle. So there is a direct relationship between eating a bit less and living quite longer.
Oh, because it elongates your life, is what you're
Yes,
saying.
because it's like driving a car. Imagine that you have a car that you can have a maximum speed of 150, and you are always 145, 48. The engine is suffering all the time. You are hitting it too much. The same happens with digestion. If you are eating also as much as you can and more, so you are consuming much more energy, you sleep worse, and you have much more problems with your microbiota than if you are eating in a lighter way, so that your machine can work in a more natural way.
That makes a lot of sense. So every time you eat a meal, you should stop just as you're starting to feel full. Like you could eat a little bit more.
When you are
but
almost full,
Yeah.
you say, okay, I'm going to leave this dessert for tonight.
That makes sense.
And what about exercise? What did they do for exercise?
Here there is an interest. It's not only exercise, it's being outside. This is very important. The urban culture is living inside a matchbox, we say in Spanish. So in an apartment, in an office, sometimes the windows are closed during all day, and the air comes, the oxygen through the system, the internal systems. And what we need is to be outside, to breathe fresh air, and to have contact with the sun. Why is that? Because the chronobiology has proven that we have an inner clock that synchronizes with the outer clock that is basically the light, the sun. So these people in Okinawa who are outside, taking care of the trees, working in the garden, walking to the house of a friend, going to the moai, doing slow exercise, they are synchronizing all the time the inner clock with the outer clock. And so they sleep better, they eat in very fixed times that is good for your microbiota, and they are moving the body all the time. The opposite of that is being 14 hours a day in an apartment or in an office and sitting with all the back pain, everything what happens there. And then maybe you go 1 hour to the gym, but it's not the same, because actually the human body is designed to be outside. And so this what they do is not only moving their body, but being outside, and from the very early morning they are in the garden, and when it gets dark they go to bed, and it allows the body to work much better.
And what about their diet? What's special about their diet, Francesc?
Well, the special thing about the Japanese diet in general, because Okinawan diet has only some differences. For instance, they eat pig, but they don't eat a lot of pig. They eat. So when we are speaking about the Japanese diet, they eat a bit of everything, but when they eat meat, it's not like in Mediterranean countries or in United States. They eat maybe 100 grams of low-fat meat with a lot of vegetables and a lot of rice. So what they do is to eat with very, very little fat, with a lot of greens, with a lot of colors, so that, and with small plates, small dishes, because we eat through the eyes also. And so if we are eating a lot of little things, psychologically, we feel that we are being fed. But, and so they eat a lot of many things, but also a little of everyone.
So they have variety in their diet, is what you're saying.
Variety and not much of everything. So a lot of little things, and altogether, it's a balanced diet.
And because I'm in healthcare, one of my questions for you, Francesc, is do they have any healthcare system there in Okinawa? Is there a hospital, clinics? Do the centenarians have annual checkups?
They have a health system. I wouldn't say that the Japanese health system is the best, because many things are private, like United States. But it's true that also there are centenarians who are not autonomous anymore, and there is a place where they end the last months of their lives. But actually, these people living in the villages like Ojimi, maybe it's possible that a person is 50 years without visiting a doctor, because they have such a healthy way of life that maybe when they go to the doctor is in the end of their path.
And also, one of the concepts that I really embrace and practice in my own life, you talk about the fact that they don't believe in retirement.
No, this is very important, I would say, in the Japanese culture. For a Japanese person, if you retire of the things you love, you are almost dead. You are waiting for the end. So they want to be useful to society. For them, this is a milestone. If you are not useful to society, then better be dead. So it's typical from the Japanese people, not only on Okinawa, that when they get close to official retirement, maybe you work in a bank, you work in a company, and at a given age, you cannot be there any longer. Then they prepare mentally next life. They volunteer for things. Maybe they volunteer for education of special children. They volunteer to work for ecological issues. Even I have traveled to very faraway places in Japan, in the mountains, and there are volunteers waiting for travelers in the train stations, that very old people with a sign putting, I speak Chinese, I speak Spanish, I speak English, and these people bring you to the hostel, give you advice, take this bus, this is this nice route, and they do it for free because they want to feel useful to the country and to the visitors.
Wow, what a wonderful concept, right, Susan?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And it's also an excellent opportunity when people do retire from, say, a certain career or a job, that they can pursue other passions and other ikigais that they have in their life.
You don't have a single ikigai in your life. During your working life, your ikigais can be your family or your profession. Maybe you build a company and this is important for you because you have created yourself. But there are other things that you can do. And there are people who discover with 70 that they can write a book. They discover that they can play an instrument. They discover that they are good teachers, and maybe they haven't taught in their whole lives because they were in other places. But there are hidden treasures inside ourselves that when we recover time and when you are officially retired, then you have a lot of time that you must fill with something useful. Then you can discover your hidden talents.
So Francesc, the premise of NED, no expiration date, is that age should never limit you. Did you find that the Okinawans focus on age at all? Do they even know each other's age?
No, for them, it's a privilege to get older. So in Spain, for instance, many women and some men, they don't want to tell you their age. And if you ask, how old are you? Some people are irritated by they don't understand the question. There, for a Japanese in general, getting old, getting a new figure in your age is like a honor. It means that you are doing things well. And especially for them, it's very important to become 100. And actually, there is something special in the Japanese government, that is that every person getting 100 receives at home a diploma of the country where it's credited that you are 100. And when they receive this document, they show everyone, because it's like being having completed a doctorship in life, that you are a master in life. So if you become 100, it's because you have done things well, and you are a master of long life. And so for them, becoming 100, 101, 102 is a honor, and it's a privilege, and it's something to feel happy about.
Wow, what a great concept. And you and Hector talked about the fact that when you went to Okinawa, the centenarians were so gracious and generous in sharing.
Yes, and very funny people, because we have an image of the typical Japanese, I don't know, from movies like Lost in Translation. And actually, if you go to Tokyo, to Osaka, people is very serious, and they are working all the time, and they are repressed, and they are shy. In Okinawa is all the opposite. They have a southern mentality. They are joking all the time. They like talking with strangers. And so when last time we were there with National Geographic to shoot a documentary called Longevity, the Science of Life. It was released first in Spain. I don't know if it has already been translated into English. And we were in the house of a man who was 108. And this man was in perfect condition. He was only a bit deaf. We had to shout so that he could understand it. And he was watering the garden. He gave us fruit. He explained a lot of things of his life with a lot of enthusiasm. He was living in the house with his son, that is a young man of 85, that is taking care of him. And he was explaining us that when he got his diploma of 100, the son said, "Father, take the motorbike for the last time today, because I don't want you can have an accident, or because your eyes are not so good." And then he showed us photos with this last motorbike trip in the village, showing with very proud this diploma. And this man was totally active, receiving people, explaining a lot of things, and mentally very fresh. And I think this is because they are always working, they are always in contact with other people, and they try to be the way they have been always until the last breath.
And are they mentally curious and always learning,
Yes.
Francesc?
They are mentally very healthy, almost all of them, because they are not only because they are working and they are outside, that we have said, but because they are all day sharing things with other people. They eat with other people, they talk, they know what happens in the house of the other, they have common interests. And so the mind, the brain is like any other machine. If you are using it all the time, it will be more difficult that it gets stuck.
And is the idea of stress, is that something that doesn't exist in Okinawa?
They don't have stress, because at least the first time we were there, we couldn't send a WhatsApp to our families because there was no coverage. So they have quite an analogical life. So they don't call another people or they don't message another. You go walking to the other place and you knock the door and hello, I have this from my garden. Do you want that we cook together? So they live in the way our great grandparents did.
So they do these, right? Not
They are
living
all day
virtually.
walking, talking, enjoying the sun, enjoying the elements, and in a quite harmonic way of life. And they don't have the technological stress, because when we talk about stress, we think maybe in a broker in Wall Street losing their temper, but there is a more subtle stress that is killing also. That is this.
Yes.
If you are in a bus, in the street, in every city, everyone is trying to answer and to react, and this is a shoot of adrenaline that maybe it's very small, but it's all the time. So you are stressed because you think that you have to answer all the messages, you have to answer all the emails, you have to put like, to put love, to do this, and so you are in a state of awareness, of alert, that you cannot relax. And so they don't have it. When they are working in the garden, they work in the garden. When they are in a conversation, they are in the conversation. And nothing what happens in a cell phone, it's important then. They have smartphones also, but they use it in another way.
Yeah, it goes back to a sense of urgency. I mean, if you feel like you're continually being rushed, you have more stress. Whereas, you know, if you decide to take things in a very relaxed manner, you know, you tend to be a little bit more happier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to have had this conversation with you.
Muchas gracias, Francesc. We
Yes,
so
thank
gracias,
you
Agustín.
so
appreciate it.
much. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
It was
Thank
lovely.
you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.